Now, the second in our two-part series on changes in treating cancer. Last night, NewsHour health correspondent Betty Ann Bowser looked at the effects on childhood cancers. Tonight, she examines how researchers are tailoring individual treatments to cure or manage the disease in adults by attacking the genetic underpinnings.
Sydney is a bone cancer patient, but even with just 3 legs, she is still no ordinary dog. The 11-year-old yellow Labrador Retriever is part of a research project underway at the University of California, Davis. Like thousands of people who also have incurable cancer, Sydney is treatable, and what researchers learn from her and the other dogs in the program will be used to prolong the lives of humans. Dr. Ralph DeVere White is director of the Davis Cancer Center in Sacramento.
They live in our environment. They have multiple genetic abnormalities in their tumors. We can biopsy that tumor, we can image that tumor, we can monitor how the tumor responds, we can do molecular analysis of the tumor before they're treated, during treatment and after treatment. If they're cured, we will then look at all of that. If they're not cured, because they die at a younger age in terms of lifespan, we get more information and hope that we will have a bigger hit rate.
It's been 40 years since the federal government promised to find a cure for cancer. But after hundreds of billions of dollars have been spent on research, it still claims more lives every year than anything except heart disease. Modern medicine has learned a lot in those years about what cancer is. That it's many hundreds of diseases, not just one. That it starts when the DNA in human genes is damaged. And that some cancers can be cured when treatments target those altered genes and stop cells from growing out of control. But pancreatic, colon, liver, prostate, and lung cancer still kill more than 500,000 Americans every year, and some forms remain stubbornly resistant to cures. Dr. David Gondra is an oncologist at UC Davis.
These cancers have been described as smart cancers. The molecular biology is complex. So for contrast, for example, some leukemias, for instance, pediatric leukemias in children, are simple cancers. There might be just a few genes which are altered, and therefore treatment is a lot more likely to have an impact. But if you have a cancer like pancreatic cancer or lung cancer, where literally there might be hundreds of genes that might be altered in even one patient's cancer, then sorting that out and figuring out why Mrs. Jones has to be treated differently from Mr. Smith, it's a major task. And now we're finding out, just like everything else, it's not as simple as we thought.
But knowing more about the molecular nature of cancer has ushered in a new age where the disease is no longer an immediate death sentence. Today, many cancers that once were fatal are now successfully treated. And even those that remain resistant to treatment, like lung cancer, while not always curable, can be managed for long periods of time. Gondra manages people with incurable lung cancer in clinical trials. It's still the deadliest of all cancers, but he's able to prolong life by targeting each patient's individual molecular fingerprint.
One person's fingerprint is different from another person's. And if a doctor then can use that information to personalize treatment for that patient so that they get the best chance of getting a remission or a cure from their cancer, then that's really an advance. And so it may be that at the end of the day, we cure cancer one patient at a time.
When 59-year-old Jane Coyne came to Gondra 19 months ago, the lung cancer had spread to her brain and bones. Were you scared?
Petrified, absolutely petrified. I thought that with a stage 4 lung cancer diagnosis that I was a goner. I had seen the statistics online that I think my chance to make it the first year was 15%. The first thing he said to me was, I can't cure you, but I can manage you.
That meant using genetically engineered mice developed at the Jackson Laboratory in Sacramento. Gandura surgically removed small pieces of Coyne's tumor and had them grafted into the animals.
That mouse is designed to allow that patient's cancer to grow. What this means is this is not a mouse cancer. It's a patient cancer. And not only is it a patient cancer, it's one patient's cancer.
As Coyne's tumor tissue grew in the mice, Gandura and his colleagues found out more.
We found from that analysis that she had a specific mutation in her cancer, which is more common in people who have lung cancer that haven't smoked. It's called an EGFR mutation, and there is a drug for that. And we put her on that drug, and she has gone into a marvelous remission.
Coyne is thrilled.
Absolutely miraculous. I mean, if there's any time to have the unfortunate experience of having lung cancer, I'm in the right place at the right time to be able to have a quality of life and to extend it.
But the drug, Tarceva, is not a cure.
It's a chemotherapy drug. At some point, it's going to run out on me. And at this point in time, I don't think there is a next step. So instead of testing things on me, they can test the mice to see if any new drug therapies will be of help.
What we're hoping to do in the meantime, of course, is to take her cancer that is growing in the mice at JAX and be able to study it molecularly and also treat it in different ways so that when and if she needs it, we will have the next step in her treatment.
Coyne and her husband, Ed, know that at some point, Gandura may run out of options. So she's living one day at a time.
I feel well. I was able to have a very good quality of life on the Tarceva. I recently went to China for 2 weeks, was able to travel. I'm back at the gym, playing with my grandchildren, doing everything that I want to do.
And what about the future?
You know, I don't ask. I don't want to have that date out there. I don't want him to tell me, oh, well, that Tarceva might work for 5 years or 7 years. I really don't want to have that number in my brain. I just go, you know, day to day, month to month. So I think the thought of dying is always in my thoughts daily. You know, you think about that, you know, things are short, you know, better take care of what you need to take care of immediately. Don't delay. You know, take advantage of every day that you have.
Coyne is one of the 20% of cancer patients with incurable disease who are in a clinical trial like Gandura's. Most Americans don't have access to this kind of sophisticated treatment. But Gandura sees a day coming when targeted treatment will be available on a widespread basis.
What we'd like to be able to do in the future is it's a little bit like Star Trek, where a patient goes into a pharmacy and they say, here's my molecular profile of my cancer, and the pharmacist gives them a pill that's designed specifically for their cancer.
Even with all the progress against incurable cancers, advocates are still worried about the future because federal funding for important research has been drying up. But for people like Jane Coyne, who 40 years ago would have had no future, they're grateful for what they've got.